Hey there! Welcome back to Color and Craft Haven, a little corner of calm where we can slow down, breathe, and add a little color to the day. Today we're diving into something that seems simple on the surface, but genuinely changes your artwork from the ground up. Swatching. If you've ever felt frustrated that the colors in your finished piece didn't quite look the way you expected, or if you've ever stared at your supplies trying to figure out which shades to pair together, then this video is going to feel like a warm hug of clarity. Swatching isn't just a technical step, it's a moment of mindfulness, exploration, and gentle creativity that helps you connect with your tools and build confidence in your artistic voice. Before we get into the how, let's talk about why this matters so much. Whether you're coloring in a stress relief book, building a palette for your next clay sculpture, or experimenting with markers, paint, pencils, or pens, every medium behaves a little differently. What you see in a pencil's exterior or on a marker's cap is almost never exactly what you get on the page. Pigments can be lighter or darker, warmer or cooler, shinier, smoother, or more transparent than they appear. And for a lot of the cozy creatives out there, like adult colorists and hobby artists, discovering these nuances can be the difference between something feeling meh and something feeling magical. Swatching gives you a way to see the truth of your tools. It's like taking the guesswork out of creativity. Instead of starting a new page and hoping for the best, you have a roadmap, a gentle guide. Suddenly, you know your colors intimately, how they blend, how they layer, what they look like under soft light, or after they dry. It's a foundational step that beginners often overlook, but experienced artists know it is one of the most grounding parts of the process. But swatching is also so much more than a practical tool. It's a moment of slowness, a little meditative ritual. There's something incredibly relaxing about laying down strokes of color and watching a whole rainbow appear in front of you. It's methodical, but soothing. It's familiar, but still full of discovery. For many people who come to art for therapy, gentle focus, or emotional grounding, swatching is the perfect way to reconnect with your creative energy without the pressure of creating a finished piece. So let's talk about how to swatch in a way that's meaningful. Not just scribbling color, but really getting to know your materials. Start by choosing the paper that you'll actually be working on. This is the number one mistake people make, swatching on random paper. Different papers change how colors behave, how they absorb, how they blend. Even the same pencil can look totally different from one surface to another. If you usually work in coloring books, try swatching on a spare page in the back or an inserted sheet of similar weight and texture. Next, think about the kind of swatches you want to create. You can keep it simple, a solid block of color, or you can get a little more curious. Try a gradient to see how it looks from light pressure to heavy pressure. Try a layered patch to learn how the color blends and builds. Try blending two colors together next to your swatch to test combinations. If you're using water-based mediums, swatch dry and wet versions to see how the pigment shifts. If you're working with gel pens, test both thin and thick strokes. This will give you real insight into what your tools can do. You might also want to label your swatches, especially if you have large sets of pencils or markers. Labels help so much when you're in the flow of your coloring session and want to quickly find the shade you're imagining. Some people write the number and name, others add notes like good blender, needs layering, or opaque. Make your swatch sheet for you and your brain. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be helpful. Now let's move on to the second part of today's topic, creating color palettes that truly pop. Once your swatches are laid out, this becomes much easier. Instead of guessing, you're pulling colors based on how they actually appear, not how the packaging claims they appear. This is where the magic happens. One of the most cozy, peaceful ways to start building a palette is simply to scan your swatches and note which colors make you feel something. Which ones feel warm? Which ones feel soothing? Which ones remind you of a forest or a stormy sky or a cup of tea by the window? Color is emotional. It's memory, atmosphere, and sensory comfort. When you start noticing how each shade affects your mood, you can build palettes that match your intention. From there, try pairing colors in small groups, 2s and 3s and 4s. Place them side by side on your swatch sheet. Ask yourself, do these colors support each other? Do they create harmony or exciting contrast? Does the palette feel calm, energetic, moody, bright, magical, maybe a little earthy? When you slow down and study how colors relate to each other, you start developing intuition. And suddenly your finished pieces look more polished, cohesive, and expressive. One of the simplest ways to build a palette is to choose a base color. Pick a shade you love, maybe a soft blue or a warm orange, and then build around it. Add a lighter version of it for harmony, a contrasting color for interest, and perhaps a neutral to balance it out. This kind of palette feels naturally cohesive because everything revolves around your chosen anchor. Another method is to create a temperature-based palette. Warm palettes rely on reds, oranges, yellows, coral tones, and cozy neutrals. Cool palettes rely on blues, purples, greens, and mist-shaded hues. Temperature sets the emotional tone of your artwork. Warm palettes feel comfy and lively. Cool palettes feel dreamy and serene. Combining warm and cool can also be striking, especially when done intentionally, like a warm brown against a cool teal or a soft lavender next to a golden yellow. If you're feeling a little playful, you can use the contrast approach. Look for colors that make each other stand out. Complementary colors like purple and yellow, blue and orange, red and green. These combinations pop because our eyes love contrast. But you can soften these combos by choosing slightly muted or pastel versions of each color, which keeps the palette cozy while still exciting. One of my favorite approaches for cozy creativity is theme-based palettes. Start with an idea. Winter forest, seaside morning, enchanted meadow, autumn cabin, pastel dreamscape, or maybe just a cozy reading nook. Then pick colors that support that theme. This works beautifully for fantasy art lovers and slow living enthusiasts who enjoy pairing mood with imagery. Another way to approach palette making is through material mixing. If you use multiple mediums like colored pencils plus gel pens or markers plus watercolor, swatch them beside each other to see how different textures interact. A sparkly gel pen next to a matte pencil can highlight details. A transparent watercolor wash under an opaque pencil stroke adds richness. When you swatch them together, you start seeing what roles each medium can play. As we explore palettes, something lovely happens. You start to understand your own preferences. Maybe you drift toward earthy tones. Maybe you fall in love with jewel palettes. Maybe pastels calm you or bold colors energize you. This self-knowledge becomes a creative compass. You build not just stronger artwork, but a more soothing and authentic creative practice. Speaking of authenticity, let's talk about making palettes that feel like you. Creativity isn't about following rules. It's about noticing what resonates. When you create a palette that feels cozy or comforting or expressive, you're creating an experience, something that reflects the quiet moments and gentle rhythms of your life. You're turning color into atmosphere. And that is why swatching and palette making fit so beautifully with slow living and mindful creativity. When you give yourself permission to explore without rushing, to play with color just because it feels good, you allow art to become more than a task. It's a ritual, a sanctuary, a way to breathe a little deeper. Now, if you ever feel stuck or overwhelmed, here's a cozy tip. Choose just 3 colors. 3 colors are enough to make a balanced palette for almost any piece. You can add more if inspiration strikes, but starting small keeps things approachable. Even professional artists limit their palettes to simplify decision making and build harmony. Another tip: take photos of the palettes you create and save them. Over time, you'll build your own color library. You'll start to see patterns, and you'll have a beautiful catalog of inspiration at your fingertips whenever you need a little creative spark. More importantly, enjoy this process. Swatching isn't about perfection. Palette making isn't about rules. These steps are meant to bring comfort, clarity, and calm to creative routine. They help you reconnect with your tools, your instincts, and your imagination. And every time you sit down with your colors, you build a deeper relationship with your craft. That's it for today's colorful time. Tell me in the comments, do you have a favorite color palette or a combo you always go back to? Take care, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next one.